Good evening, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap-up for the week ending February 19th. It's Sunday night, the 21st right now, and I'm getting started on my video. My neighbors to the left have a loud barking dog. My neighbors to the right are playing horseshoe, so I apologize for any audio disturbances during this video. I hopefully won't get too distracted. So we're starting off with the ES. This is a weekly chart of the ES. We see that last week we put in some quite a positive bullish reversal. I'm going to zoom in, make it a little bit easier to see. So last week we put in a hammer pattern, hammer candle. I suggested that there was a good potential for us to change direction to the upside, and indeed we had a higher low and a higher high. So we did begin a new uptrend. We're headed towards the flat Tenkan Sen above, which is currently located at 1938.75, but we did not hit that. Instead, we put in a high of 1933.50 and found some sellers coming in and closed the week at 1914.25. So as far as what we have going forward, we are still bearish overall in Ichimoku terms. We are under the cloud, we're under the Tenkan Sen, we're under the Kijun Sen. The Kijun Sen is bear crossed, meaning the Kijun Sen is above the Tenkan Sen, which is a bear cross. So bearish in all ways Ichimoku except for the current uptrend. So if we do move higher, we can definitely look for resistance at that 1938.75 level, and then also if we move above that level, the 1956.38 level, and then if we make it over that 1956.38 level, we should definitely find resistance at the cloud, which is approximately, let's see, 1972, thereabouts. So keep those levels in mind if we do move higher to the upside. If we move lower, then we could retest these prior areas that we can easily see. The 1868 level, the bottom of last week's prior candle is 1865, and then these two wicks down here, we could go all the way down to 1805 on the downside or lower. Not a lot of Ichimoku indicators. I'm just looking at prior levels on this instance. We can also take note that the Chikou is going to run into the cloud as well if we do move higher, and that is around the same level as the Kijun Sen. So that's around that 1956.38, so 1956.25, 1956.50 area. So let's move on to, I realized I was a little bit long-winded last week. I'm going to try to be a little bit more concise this week. I try to sometimes give a lot of Ichimoku instruction and stuff like that in my videos, but I realize for those of you who already know about Ichimokus, I might be taking too long and people have short attention spans, etc. All right, looking at CL, this is the continuous contract. The new contract just opened, which is the J6 contract. So you can see it's real spotty if I was to try to be able to chart that on the on a weekly time frame. So I'm going to just keep it on the continuous contract for these purposes, but you do want to be specific on shorter time frames with the contract that you are trading. So looking at crude, we see that we did put in a reversal off this hammer candle that we put in last week, and we did indeed test over the Tenkan Sen, and then we closed below the Tenkan Sen. So that's significant. This 32.22 level is going to offer resistance this week coming forward. If we are able to make it over that 32.22 level, then I would suggest that it would be possible for us to get back to this 33, let's see, this one was 33.83, 33.90 area. Obvious support and resistance here, and then also this 38 level, and then the Kijun Sen here at 38.50, thereabouts, 38.49, 38.50. Grid is still bearish in overall Ichimoku terms. It's not oversold anymore. If you want to look at the RSI, you see that it's bouncing let's look at some other stock indexes. Let's look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ did put in a reversal after this beautiful hammer candle last week and made it all the way into the cloud and then was rejected and closed under the cloud. You can see this. This is the same as what happened with crude, basically, except not the cloud, but the Tenkan-sen. We see that the Chikou came and tried to break out over the cloud here and ran into this candle bottom and was unable to. It's just closed just slightly over the cloud. So next week it will be running into this candle, which may or may not be a problem. If we do make it into the cloud, which is at approximately the 41.84 level, then we could see higher prices up to the Tenkan-sen, which is at 42.80, and then the Kijun-sen at 4,388, so 43.01 thereabouts. Then we still have cloud resistance all the way up to, actually next week we only have cloud resistance to this approximate same level as the Kijun-sen, just slightly under the Kijun-sen, so let's just call it 4,300. Once we get above 4,300, we will be over the cloud next week because of the shape of the cloud changing and time passing. Do make note of the shape of the cloud. It is rectangular and moving sideways, so that suggests a tight range moving into as time passes for the NASDAQ, unless we can break out over it. I've been talking about this every week, so I won't belabor the point. Let's look at the Russell. The Russell bounced also and put in a new uptrend, putting in a higher high and a higher low. If we do move higher, we should find resistance at the flat Tenkan-sen above at 1048.10. And if we are able to move over that, we should find resistance at the Kijun-sen above that at 1072 or wherever the Kijun-sen opens next week. The Tenkan-sen could open ticking up and might be at a slightly different level. So do check on that when the new weekly candle opens up for the Russell. Seems like someone is winning horseshoes next door. All right, let's look at the Dow. Dow was a bit tricky, as you may or may not have been paying attention to IBM. IBM has been a nice uptrend, and they, quote, they often use IBM to what I would call fluff the Dow. If they want to make the Dow index higher, they buy IBM. And you might think I'm a conspiracy theorist for saying that, but anyway, so I think there is a direct correlation to the strength of IBM and the Dow strength here. But we do have a uptrend. We have a higher high and a higher low. We did make it all the way up to the Tenkan-sen at 16,513. In fact, the high of this current candle is 16,515. So just 2 ticks over the 16,513 Tenkan-sen, and then we did get rejected from that level, and we came down and closed at this prior resistance, and multiple occasions. This you can see by me holding the cursor here that this area has been prior resistance many times, and also prior support. This 16,365 level. So if we do make it above the Tenkan-sen this week, we could actually see the Tenkan-sen going back for a bull cross. It's bear cross currently, the Kijun-sen being over the Tenkan-sen. If we do make it over the Tenkan-sen, then we are heading towards this flat cloud area above at around 16,735, 16,740 thereabouts. And then the cloud is very thin here, so not that difficult to break through. It looks more complicated over here with the Chikou. The Chikou is coming into these candles, which might be a little bit more difficult for the Chikou to get over these candles, and then over the Tenkan-sen at 16,680 thereabouts. And then the Kijun-sen here, also at 16,808, and then the cloud here at 1720. So even though it seems pretty straightforward over here, there's a lot of complications for the Chikou. Got to keep that in mind. Let's look at gold. Gold we see was able to remain above the cloud despite this very strong breakout over the cloud. It did come down and test the top of the cloud. In fact, the top almost perfectly The low was at 1191.50, and which is just about the exact level of the top of the cloud here. So that should be interesting to you if you're studying Ichimoku. This is is a hammer candle, so bullish, but it's an inside candle from the last candle because we put in such a strong move on this last weekly candle. We were unable to get above this 1240 level. The Chikou got rejected and closed actually back under the cloud. So it's only a few ticks under the cloud, but that could be significant resistance here at this 1228 level thereabouts. So keep an eye on what the Chikou does next. If you're bullish for gold, you're going to want the Chikou to reverse and get back into the cloud. I wouldn't be surprised to see more sideways action. The cloud itself going forward suggests sideways action, and then it ends up being lower into the summer months, so do keep that in mind. Pardon me, that actually was my cat knocking her food dish off the counter. If we do move back into the cloud, we do have support at the Tenkan-sen at 1160.20, so keep that level in mind as well. Let's look at silver. Silver put in a nice rounded bottom and then came up and actually put in a close inside the cloud last week, but a bit of a topping tail. And then, 2 weeks ago, and then last week found rejection underneath the cloud and closed under the cloud. But it did have a bit of a bottoming tail here. So it's an inside candle, so there's no change of trend. But we'll see what happens if silver can make it back into the cloud. Just by the nature of the sideways motion of the new candle being over here, we will have resistance at the cloud at around 1537 and support down here at the Kijun-sen at 1499.5. And then if that support is lost, we have support at the Tenkan-sen at 1486. We could see a bull cross happening. In fact, we could see confluent Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen here on the new weekly candle when it opens up. We shall see about that. Let's look at some treasuries. Let's look at ZB. ZB sort of bull flagging over the flat Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen. ZB is quite extended. You see the RSI is getting close to the top here. We did have this big topping tail, and when we had this big topping tail and got so extended over the cloud, the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen went flat, suggesting a little bit of mean reversion or flagging for the 30-year Treasury bond. Last week we put in an inside candle, but it is a hammer pattern candle, and the body of the candle closed above the body of last week's candle. I'm expecting more sideways price action for ZB on the weekly time frame. But overall, it's bullish in all ways, Ichimoku. Let's look at the 10-year. I've had these fibs on here for a while. These fibs are drawn the way I draw fibs, which is using real candle bodies rather than the wicks. So keep that in mind if your fibs look different. I think it's significant because you can see that this 78.6 fib has been a significant level of resistance in the past. Back at the beginning of 2015, and now here at the beginning of 2016. So let's zoom in and look at the current stuff. This is actually a line I drew on there, so ignore that. But last week's candle is a red candle. It tested slightly over this 78.6 fib that I have, that 136.060. Let me zoom in a little bit closer even. And sold off and put in almost a very small body candle, like a doji style candle. Pretty long bottoming tail though, so we'll see what happens. I do expect flagging action also from the 10-year. We are a bit overextended above the cloud. The cloud is thin and flat below. The Tenkan-sen is located at 129.075, which could attract price action back towards it. It is probably going to be flat on the new candle, given the lack of momentum to the upside. Let's look at the dollar. The dollar, after closing inside the cloud last week, tried to break out of the cloud, but really was unable to make a big progress out of the cloud and closed just slightly above the cloud and slightly above the Kijun Sen after putting in a topping tail. So I now expect the dollar to trade in this range between the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen. Kijun Sen at 96.56 and the Tenkan Sen at 97.61. We'll see if what happens. The Chikou over here, this red line, is tangled up between the candles and the Kijun Sen and the Tenkan Sen also. That is perhaps contributed to this topping tail here as well. We see the cloud, the contour of the cloud is moving lower into April-May area, the top of the cloud, so offering lower and lower support. In order for us to see strong appreciation of the dollar to the upside, we're going to need to get back above the Tenkan Sen at 97.61.5. All right, let's look at some grain charts. Let's look at corn. Corn is continuing to move sideways in a bearish chart. We did put in a close over the Tenkan Sen, but otherwise put in a similar candle to last week, just happens to be a green candle. So just really sideways action in corn. If we do move higher, we're going to have resistance at the 374.13 level above. If we move lower, we'll have support at the 362.75 level. Let's look at soybeans. Similar situation where, in fact, we're in this perfect range between the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen. We put in a almost a spinning top type doji with a little bit of a bottoming tail, a slightly larger topping tail. So stuck in this range right between the Tenkan and the Kijun Sen, overall bearish chart. Oats. Oats looking pretty bearish, but in an uptrend, as they did put in a higher high and a higher low. If we continue this uptrend higher, we will expect to find resistance at the Tenkan Sen above at 207.88. Let's look at wheat. After putting in a new low last week, wheat tried to move higher and actually did put in a change of trend to the upside with a higher high and a higher low, but got sold off significantly after that high was put in and closed pretty close to the lows. Very small body here, but off the lows. So if we do see higher prices from wheat, we can expect resistance at the 473 level. Let's look at some live cattle. Live cattle, I identified a triangle type pattern going on here. In fact, I drew this prior to this candle filling in the span here, but it did indeed do that. You can see, looking at the Chikou too, that there's also a triangle pattern. This is kind of a handy little clue about Ichimoku charts, is you can draw triangle patterns from the Chikou as well if you see them happening. This shows an upside break of the triangle pattern. Whether or not that's the case or not, it did close above the Kijun Sen, so that could be significant. But I expect probably that we will continue to trade in this range, or we could see an upside break from this triangle pattern that we have on live cattle. But overall, this chart is still bearish with support at the Kijun Sen below at 133.35, and then at the Tenkan Sen at 132.088. Let's look at lean hogs. Lean hogs came up in this, have been an uptrend for all throughout the beginning of the year. After putting in a very bullish candle last week, ran into the cloud and were rejected by the cloud. So we are still in an uptrend, but this is a potential reversal candle moving forward for lean hogs. If we do reverse lower, look for this prior support resistance level of about 66.10. You can see that's been hit on multiple occasions. If we move below that, then we can look for support at the Tenkan Sen, currently at 64.287, but it could open higher. In fact, it could it could open more towards the 6610 level. Keep that 6610 level in mind. If we do fail to reverse, then do keep an eye on the bottom of the cloud offering resistance at 7150. Let's look at coffee. Coffee's still chopping along in this slow downtrend on overall bearish chart. We have, well, before I zoom out too far, we have this cloud moving lower, but Chikou is underneath price action. We have a bear cross Kijun-sen over the Tenkan-sen. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen though that could attract price higher. We currently have an inside candle from last week with a very small body, a lot of indecision, but some solid buying support coming in off the lows. So if you are trading coffee, do keep an eye on the 118.93 Tenkan-sen level for possible price rejection if we do trade higher. Let's look at nat gas. Nat gas is looking quite bearish. Overall bearish chart and in a solid downtrend. I wouldn't be surprised to see us either retest the lows or make a new low this week for nat gas. So keep an eye on that. We do have a little bit of a divergence here with the Tenkan-sen tipped up for a bull cross, potential bull cross, but I think after the downward momentum of last week's candle that will be corrected and it will probably actually flatten out and move sideways. I'm going to end it there. Thank you for watching my videos, and please do give me a thumbs up on YouTube if you like the video. It seems to always help with the bandwidth situation on YouTube. And if you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku, please do check out my website at CloudChartist.com. Feel free to hit me up with any questions on Twitter at CloudChartist, or you can always reach me via email, cloudchartist@gmail.com. Thanks again, and have a good week.